Welcome to the spring commencement at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill.
It's graduation day 2014 in Chapel Hill. Faith Hedgepeth was supposed to have been here. She was supposed to have dressed in Carolina blue, waved triumphantly to her family, and basked in the achievement of a degree from the nation's oldest, and they'd say best, public university, and of course, a perennial basketball powerhouse.
This is the place that she had wanted to come all her life.
This was her dream.
All degree candidates, please rise.
That was the dream.
Congratulations.
911, where is your emergency?
But this is the reality.
I just walked into my apartment and my friend was just like, he's unconscious.
How old is she?
He's 19.
Is she breathing?
I don't think so.
Okay, listen to me.
There's blood everywhere.
There's what?
There's blood everywhere.
Faith's mother, Connie, is called.
She said, well, Miss Hedgepeth, I'm sorry to tell you, but Faith is dead.
The stunned matriarch relays the news to the family, including son Chad.
He said, what is it, Mama?
I didn't know what to think.
Faith's dad, Roland.
I said, are you sure, Connie?
To daughter, Rolanda.
I said, what? And I just collapsed.
So sparse are the initial details, the family is left to wonder exactly how Faith died.
Did she get caught up with the wrong people? Was she just at the wrong place at the wrong time?
Did she commit suicide?
Breaking news is first at 6.
But it isn't long before WTVD, the ABC-owned station in Raleigh-Durham, starts reporting details about the case.
Police are treating Hedgepeth's death as a murder and say they don't believe it was a random act.
We want to know everything. We want to know why.
UNC was supposed to be a beginning for Faith, not the end.
She received a scholarship, full tuition all the way through graduate school.
That scholarship was the ticket out of her tiny hometown of Hollister, a place filled with good people, but little else. Faith, a Native American, grew up a member of the Hallowasaponi tribe, a Native people who've called this part of the country home since before there was a country. It's a place Faith promised to return to one day.
It meant enough to her to want to come back and help her community after she achieved in life.
Absolutely, that was home to her and she wanted to make a difference.
The transition was not always smooth. At times, the grades suffered.
So adjusting to the class load was a bit difficult for her. So she did struggle academically, but she decided not to give up on Carolina and attaining a Carolina degree.
What was never in doubt was Faith's ability to connect with others on campus.
Faith was a very social person. She instantly had connections on campus, and she instantly caught the attention of men on this campus.
She just smiled all the time. I know I'm a smiler, but she had me beat.
She definitely knew how to kind of make you feel safe, make you feel happy.
The band of sisters quickly forms. In her freshman and sophomore years, Una and Patty, roommate Karina, and friend Marisol Rangel become tight with Faith.
She had friends everywhere. She would make friends so quick.
And there were plenty of other friends to make. Faith Hedgepeth hits the books by day and the social scene by night.
She liked to dance. She liked to be in a loud room full of people talking. She enjoyed going out.
She's certainly not alone. UNC students know how to throw a party, and at this school, everyone's invited. But Faith maintains her priorities, at times holding down 2 jobs. While waitressing at the Red Robin, Faith posts on Instagram. A customer has added a heart around her name on this bill. Faith mocks her uncanny ability to charm with a caption on Instagram that reads, "I make my guests fall in love." She will be dead 5 days later. When her roommate Karina comes home and makes that emergency call, which will itself become part of the mystery police now want you to help solve.
There's blood all over the pillows, like in the comforter. I just can't believe this.
How many murders happen here in Chapel Hill?
Generally, we average less than 1 a year.
Chief of Police Chris Blue doesn't just protect a town, he must protect an image. The university is one of the state's largest employers. When co-eds turn up dead for mysterious reasons, students start worrying about safety.
The lack of information has students who did not know Faith on edge.
We just want answers and kind of give us a little peace.
That's bad for business. The pressure to solve this case is immense.
We don't stop. We don't quit.
The police focus on the unsentimental business of investigation, and there is no shortage of evidence.
We're trying to make some sense of the literally thousands of pieces of information that are coming in and prioritize.
But in the absence of an arrest, speculation rules the day, and everyone has a theory.
I do believe Faith's death was a personal vendetta. I don't believe that this was random at all.
Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Rigor Mortis podcast. My name is Adam, and normally to the right of me we have Jason, but due to the coronavirus, we are taking additional precautions, and Jason is staying home. He lives in an area that is much more affected by the virus than mine, so just out of safety, he will not be joining us this week, though I do miss him. He is doing okay. He's healthy. I just talked to him. His family's doing great. So hopefully we can get Jason back here soon. I'm doing great. I'm locked up with my girlfriend and the 3 kids, and everybody is healthy and getting along still. So I couldn't possibly ask for more. And I want to thank everybody for tuning in this week. Today we'll be discussing the story of Faith Hedgepeth. Now, Faith was a member of the Halewa-Sapani Native American tribe recognized by the state of North Carolina. Faith Hedgepeth was born in 1992 in Warren County, part of the tribe's traditional territory, so this dates way back to, before settlers. Her parents divorced within a year of her birth, and she was raised by her mother with help from an older sister in Hollister and Warrenton. Connie Hedgepeth named her second daughter Faith because she believed that Faith was what she needed to raise 4 children on her own, having divorced her husband who had a drug problem. In high school, Faith was an honor student, a cheerleader, and a member of many extracurricular clubs and organizations. She did well enough academically to earn a Gates Millennium Scholarship to attend the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. Her father had attended UNCCH as well, but had dropped out, never completed his education. She hoped to be the first in her family to graduate from college. After undergraduate studies, she was considering further studies to become either a pediatrician or a teacher, so she had huge aspirations. Her first 2 years at the university went well for her, although she took the spring of 2012 off. She remained in the Chapel Hill area over the summer, living in an off-campus apartment at the Hawthorne at the View complex between Chapel Hill and Durham, on the line between Durham and Orange counties during the months of August. She planned to move to another apartment after her financial aid for the fall semester was made available to her. She shared the apartment with Karina Rosario, with whom she had been friends since freshman year, and Rosario's boyfriend, Eric Decoy Jones. The relationship between Jones and Rosario had been marked with domestic violence, and eventually she ended the relationship, having him move out. However, he had in early July 2012 twice attempted to break into the apartment, even after Rosario changed the locks. Hedgepeth eventually drove Rosario to court to get a protective order that required Jones to stay away from the apartment. Jones reportedly resented Hedgepeth's influence over his former girlfriend, and at one point he had reportedly threatened Hedgepeth during a phone conversation to kill her if he did not get back with his girlfriend. Though Faith was seemingly unshaken and stood by the side of her friend and continued to help her throughout this difficult transition between separation from her boyfriend. The evening of September 6, 2012, which was a Thursday, began at 5:45 p.m., with Faith attending a rush event at the campus chapel of the Alpha Pi Omega, which is a historically Native American sorority she hoped to join. At 7:15, she left saying she had to work on a paper that she was writing about the history of her tribe. She and Rosario went to the university's Davis Library to study together at 8 p.m. Between 8:30 and 9, she exchanged texts with her father about her hopes to join the sorority. Hedgepeth left Rosario there briefly and returned around 11:30. Once reunited with her friend, they had left to return to their apartment together. After arriving around midnight, half an hour later, they left again, heading for the thrill, a now closed nightclub in downtown Chapel Hill, which admitted customers under the legal drinking age of 21 to dance. There's a lot of places like that around here. They probably got a under 21 stamp on their hand and were able to go and have a good time, even though they were not able to drink. The two young women arrived at the Thrill around 12:40 a.m. After almost an hour and a half of dancing, Rosario told police later that she was having an upset stomach and wanted to leave. Security cameras at the club showed her and Hedgepeth leaving around 2:06 a.m., this being the last visual record of the presence of Faith anywhere before the killing. By 3 a.m., Hedgepeth and Rosario had returned to their apartment. A woman who had lived below them was awake watching television. She remembers hearing 3 loud thumping noises, which she described as similar to a heavy bag being dropped or furniture being overturned. Shortly after, Hedgepeth's Facebook page was also accessed at around the same time. At 3:40 a.m., a text was sent from Hedgepeth's phone to that of Brandon Edwards, a former boyfriend of hers, saying, "Hey B, can you come over here please? Rosario needs you more, aha. Please let her know you care." 3 minutes later, another text was sent from Hedgepeth's phone to Edwards, with a single word, "than," believed to be a correction for the "aha" in the previous text. That was the last evidence of activity from her phone. At 4:16 a.m., Edwards sent a return text asking who had sent the previous text. Rosario's phone records show she was also trying to call Edwards at around the same time. He did not answer. And when he did not answer, she tried to call Jordan McCrary, a UNCCH soccer player that she had known. At 4:25 a.m., she left the apartment to get McCrary's car. At that time, Rosario said later, she believed Hedgepeth was asleep in her room and left the apartment door unlocked. McCrary drove Rosario to the home of another acquaintance on West Longview Street in Chapel Hill. She put the time of her arrival there at around 4:30 a.m. after spending the rest of the night and the early morning there. A short time after, around 10:30, she began to trying to get and arrange a ride home. After attempting to reach Hedgepeth, who did not answer, Rosario instead called another friend, Marcel Rangel, who came and took her back to her apartment. When they arrived there shortly before 11 a.m., they entered and called for Hedgepeth, who did not respond. In her bedroom, they found her bloodied body wrapped up in a quilt, partially nude. They immediately dialed 911 and informed the police. Hey guys, we want to take a moment to tell you about this new exciting game that we've been playing called Best Fiends. Now, true crime is our passion, but even we need the occasional break. So when we need that mental palate cleanser, our go-to for a refresher is Best Fiends. Let me tell you what, I was super excited when they approached us in regards to sponsoring our podcast because I'd been playing Best Fiends for months.
Now, I've only been playing this for a few weeks since you told me about it, but I really enjoy how challenging the puzzles are, and it helps keep my brain fresh for all of the information we have to take in while recording the podcast.
This game is definitely challenging, Jason. You got that right. And a lot of fun to play. So engage your brain with fun puzzles and collect tons of cute characters. Trust me, with over 100 million downloads, this 5-star rated mobile puzzle game is a must play. So do yourself a favor like Jason and I have and download Best Fiends for free. It's a great game. We definitely think you'll enjoy. Again, check out Friends without the R. Best Fiends. Download it today. An investigation into the events that had occurred was launched immediately, though the details of the investigation were not discussed publicly at first. A deviation from the Chapel Hill police usually practiced. The town obtained a court order sealing all records as they were collected. Police collected semen from the scene and used it to develop a DNA profile. It reportedly was consistent with the male DNA found elsewhere in the apartment. The autopsy determined that Hedgepeth had died from blunt force trauma to the head, likely a result of being hit by an empty rum bottle in the apartment. Jones seemed to be a very strong suspect from the beginning. Police learned of his history of domestic violence and his threat against Hedgepeth. They also found that the night before, around 6 p.m., he had texted an acquaintance asking for forgiveness for, and I quote, "for what I am about to do," and then posted the same message on his Twitter feed. 3 days later, he changed the banner from his Facebook page to read, "Dear Lord, forgive me for all of my sins and the sins I may commit today. Protect me from the girls who don't deserve me and the ones who wish me dead today. Police sought a DNA sample from Jones, whom they considered to be a person of interest at this time. After some initial resistance, he complied. His DNA did not match the sample found in the apartment, and they excluded him as a suspect immediately. The authorities also took DNA from Edwards and several other men that they had found out to have been at that same nightclub, though results had come back with the same. Within days, the university's Board of Trustees and local Crime Stoppers Chapel, the Halewa Sapani tribe, and the apartment complex had offered a combined $29,000 in reward money for information leading to an arrest. Police hoped the reward money would leak to some kind of evidence in this case, and it would be resolved quickly. 2 months later, the office of Governor Bev Perdue added another $10,000 to the reward in hopes that this would help to catch Hedgepeth's killer. In November, the Daily Tar Heel, which is a student newspaper, petitioned the judge who had ordered the investigation records sealed to release an early search warrant in the case. Instead, the judge ordered it resealed for another 45 days. At that time, the Chapel Hill police had not even released Hedgepeth's cause of death, although her parents told the media that their daughter's death certificate said she had been beaten. In January, the police announced that the DNA found at the crime scene had come back and had belonged to a male. Also, the FBI had developed a profile of a man. They said it was likely that he had lived near Hedgepeth in the past, had expressed an interest in her, and his behavior may have changed since the crime, including showing an unusual interest in the case. Notwithstanding this release of information, the town successfully petitioned the court to keep the warrants under seal, saying that phase of the investigation was still not complete. In May of 2013, the court extended the seal another 60 days. In September of 2013, a year after the killing, Chapel Hill police formally requested the assistance of the North Carolina Bureau of Investigations, which had provided some help earlier in the investigation with the case. Quote, we're working the case hard, and we've used all possible resources, says Chief Chris Blue. However, he would not share any more information about the case at this time. 2 months later, the Tar Heel noted that Hedgepeth's case still remained open, along with the death case of David Shernan, a UNCCH freshman whose body was found on the grounds of a Carrboro cement plant the previous October. In Hedgepeth's case, there had been no new information about a possible suspect since January, yet the case records remain sealed by the courts. In March of 2014, the Tar Heel was joined by the Riley News and Observer and Capital Broadcasting Company, which owns 3 television and radio stations in the Research Triangle area. In opposing the district attorney's motion to extend the seal another 60 days, they argued that the order was not justified by a compelling interest or by the state's part, and that some of the orders had been issued before the records covered by them had been created, meaning the argument for sealing them was speculative. During a hearing on the motion, the district attorney filed a more specific accounting of what investigative work had been done, allowing the media to report for the first time on what the police had searched in the immediate aftermath of the crime. 18 months had gone by, and no one's been charged and no one's been arrested, says a lawyer for the Tar Heel. The public has the right to assume the trail has gone cold or it's not being investigated in a diligent manner. In response, the district attorney's office argued that releasing the detailed records at that point would definitely hinder the investigation, and the records remained sealed. The public continued to push, and though it took several months, the court ordered the records unsealed in July of 2014. Media organizations were able to review and report on the search warrant applications and the investigation notes that had supported them, with most names redacted for not only the residents and cars, but Hedgepeth's phone, computer, Facebook records, and bank account. Also released were the transcripts of Rosario's 911 call and the content of the early morning text messages, as well as a timeline of Rosario and Hedgepeth's actions the night before her body was found. In September of 2014, almost 2 years after Hedgepeth's death, the autopsy report was released. It confirmed what was on her death certificate and that she had died of blunt force trauma to the head. She had numerous cuts and bruises, as well as blood under her fingernails, suggesting she had struggled with her killer. The DNA taken from the semen was matched to DNA elsewhere at the scene. The release of records included the recording of Rosario's 911 call and 2 pieces of evidence that were seen as potentially helpful in narrowing down the killer's identity. The DNA profile was also used later to generate an image of the potential suspect. Investigators have excellent evidence in the case, Chief Blue says. When the documents were released, this is not a cold case. It has been and remains an active investigation. Among the evidence collected was a note left near Hedgepeth's body with the text, "I'm not stupid, bitch, jealous." It was sloppily handwritten in a ballpoint pen on what was determined to be a torn-off bottom from a white paper bag typically used as a takeout bag from restaurants. Police believe the bag may have come from the Time Out, which is a popular 24-hour restaurant in Chapel Hill that would have been the only place that would have been open at this time. At the time Hedgepeth and Rosario left the Thrill, it uses such bags and is short distance away from the nightclub, so it makes total sense. Investigators have not said whether they have had the handwriting analyzed. The website Crime Watch Daily has an expert, Peggy Walla, who had looked at photos of the note. She noted that it was clean of the blood reportedly found spattered all over the room, suggesting it was written either away from the crime scene or beforehand. The writer may have been using their non-dominant hand in an attempt to disguise their handwriting. Walla believes the writer was particularly agitated, likely to the point of homicidal rage, by being called stupid. A friend of Hedgepeth's shared with police a long conversation, perhaps inadvertently recorded, when Hedgepeth's phone pocket dialed them on the night before the murder, that had had some bearing on the case. It consisted of a 3-way conversation, 3 minutes long, between what sounds to be Hedgepeth and a male and another female, with music in the background. It was time-stamped at 1:23 a.m., when the night's timeline had Hedgepeth at the Thrill. It was mostly inaudible and of minimal evidentiary value until Crime Watch Daily hired an audio expert who specialized in enhancing such recordings. He claimed he heard Hedgepeth crying for help while the male says, "I think she's dying," and the female says, "Do it anyhow." After a long discussion in which the female seems to get angrier, the male and female use the name Eric and Rosie. Crime Watch Daily informed Chapel Hill police of the findings, and they agreed to consider the enhanced version and elevate it. However, due to the time of the message, they do not believe it to be a recording of the killing. The music in the background further suggests it was a recording at the nightclub. On a September 23, 2016 episode of the ABC News program 2020, Chapel Hill police released an image generated by Parabon Nanolabs, a genetic testing company in Reston, Virginia, of what the suspect who had left the semen might have looked like based purely on phenotype in his DNA profile. Farabon's president told ABC that snapshots, the program his company used to create the image, predicts eye color, hair color, skin color, freckling, face morphology, and ancestry. The image included a chart listing the probability that the suspect had the traits he was assigned. According to the image, the suspect was very strongly Native American and European mixed ancestry or Latino. Most of his genetic markers pointed to Mexican, Colombian, and Iberian ancestry, and some other South American and African countries making up the balance. Parabon believed that over 80% confidence that the suspect would have a skin tone in the olive range, with very few freckles, or none at all, and black hair. It did not make any predictions as to his height or weight. Chapel Hill police have not named any suspects or even persons of interest in the case, but have stated that they do not believe the killing was a mere crime of opportunity by a stranger. They insist it was committed by someone in her social group, likely someone who knew her through the UNCCH community. The police had also interviewed some 2,000 people and had obtained DNA testing on 750 of them. They have mapped the relations of many of those interviewees with Hedgepeth. Speculation has sometimes focused on Rosario, Hedgepeth's roommate at the time, due to her 911 call and last text sent from Hedgepeth's phone to her former boyfriend suggesting that Rosario needs you more than you know. The woman addressed as Rosie on the voicemail conversation and the decision to leave the apartment unlocked with, she claims, a sleeping Hedgepeth inside, to go sleep somewhere else at 4:30 that morning of the killings. Although she has left North Carolina and says very little about the case since then, authorities believe that Rosario could tell them a little bit more that might be able to help them to solve this case. And unfortunately, to this day, the case behind the murder of Faith Hedgepeth does remain unsolved. As for my thoughts, I would definitely take a closer look at Rosario because there are some things that don't add up. For instance, once you get back home at 4:30 in the morning, why would you leave your home to go to somebody else's place to spend the night? Why wouldn't you just sleep it off, get up in the morning, and go visit this other person? And if you are going to leave in the early morning hours, why would you leave the door unlocked? Let us know what you guys think. You can shoot us an email at therigamortispodcast@gmail.com. You can find us on all things social media under the Rigor Mortis Podcast. You can follow me specifically on all things social media as Dr. Scullyfingers. And if you would like to follow Jason, you can find him as the Rigor Mortis _JLou. Until next week, thank you for listening, and we'll get back to you.
The week after Faith Hedgepeth is brutally murdered, the university holds this vigil, honoring her with a Native American ceremony.
Faith, I love you, baby.
Meanwhile, investigators are trying to tackle the puzzling case by retracing her final hours. A jigsaw still being worked on today, 4 years later. One that Lieutenant Celisa LaHue loses sleep over.
Just a couple of weeks ago, I woke up in the middle of the night and a name popped in my head and I couldn't place it. So I had to get up and come into work. So there isn't a day that goes by that we don't look at Faith's case.
For the most part, the Chapel Hill police have played things close to the vest when it's come to releasing information. But tonight, for the first time, they are opening up with brand new evidence, asking your help to advance the case.
There may be another piece of information out there that this story will shake loose in somebody's mind.
This is the police timeline. The evening begins with Faith and roommate Karina Rosario on campus studying.
They went to the student library on campus, which is called Davis Library.
Faith steps out and pays a visit to the apartment of a male friend.
Faith left for a short time and then came back to the library and picked Karina up, and they went back to their residence at Hawthorne at the View.
Hawthorne at the View was the name of an apartment complex. This overhead shows exactly where the two lived. You have to follow the road all the way to the end to find it. They shared the second floor apartment, number 1502.
Did you find any surveillance video from this complex?
There was no surveillance from this complex.
Inside the apartment for only 30 minutes, the teens are now ready for a night of dancing. Police say they locked the door behind them. About 10 minutes later, they enter the popular Thrill nightclub on Rosemary Street.
Thrill is one of the common nightclubs that undergraduate students, particularly those that are younger than 21, can still get into.
This security camera footage, never before seen by the public, shows an overhead view as the women walk into the club. That's one of the club's bouncers, escorting them inside.
Oh, Thursday is popular college night for, I think, any college town, so of course it would have been super packed.
What transpired in the club that night? It's impossible to tell from this camera. But less than 90 minutes later, Karina seems ready to call it a night.
Yes, she did indicate that she wasn't feeling well when she left the club.
That's Karina walking out first, followed by Faith. They spend a few moments talking to a man outside. By 3 a.m., the women are back at the apartment. What's about to happen next looks like the telltale signs of major guy drama, at least to this guy.
There were a lot of men that liked Faith. There were a lot of men that liked some of the other young women in this case.
Columnist Tom Gasparoli has been following the case for years.
They're very attractive women, and their jealousies and angers and breakups and hookups.
Around 3:30 a.m., records obtained by police show that there is activity on Faith's Facebook page. Faith is also texting this man, Brandon Edwards, seen here on his Facebook page. The text, "Hey B, can you come over here please? Karina needs you more than you know. Please let her know you care." So who is this guy?
Brandon and Karina used to talk I don't know if they dated, but they used to talk.
Others have likened Brandon as a big brother figure to the women. Police say Karina's phone records show she is calling Brandon Edwards multiple times around the same time Faith is texting him, but there is no response. So Karina reaches out to someone else, UNC soccer star Jordan McCrary.
Every day, wake up, train, grind, and do it all again the next day.
She texts Jordan, yes, to come and pick her up at Hawthorne at the View.
Was Jordan her boyfriend?
I would say he was somebody that she had a relationship with.
Close to 4:30 a.m., Faith's roommate Karina leaves her apartment, gets in McCrary's car, and heads to his apartment. She says she left the front door unlocked.
At that time, when she left the apartment, she knew Faith to be in bed, in the bedroom.
When the sun rises over Chapel Hill, the party's over and school's starting. Karina needs a ride home to pick up a paper for class and then head to campus. When she can't reach Faith, she calls Marisol Rangel for a lift.
So I picked up Karina and we came back to the apartment and we saw her car. So I'm like, oh, she probably overslept.
It is nearly 11 a.m. The two climb the stairs and enter the apartment. They call out Faith's name, but get no response.
All I remember is just calling her name, just because we knew she was there, like, Faith, Faith. That's when we went to the room. And we found her.
So Faith was found deceased, partially nude. There was a lot of blood in the bedroom, and she had suffered what appeared to be severe head trauma.
When police arrive, they see this near Faith's body. This photo, revealed for the first time, is allegedly the murder weapon, an empty bottle of rum.
That murder weapon that you mentioned, that bottle, what condition was that in?
It was a Bacardi bottle, and it was covered in blood smudges. It was a brutal death.
Did it seem like there was forced entry going into the apartment?
No, there was no sign of forced entry.
Semen is also discovered on Faith's body. Investigators use it to generate a DNA profile. They're convinced that DNA belongs to the killer and that he may also have perpetrated a sexual assault.
Is it more likely than not that she was raped?
Yes.
In the search for Faith's killer, that DNA profile will become sort of a glass slipper. But who will fit it?